That's our man. 5 minutes after 9.
He's riding solo today. Wait, armed escort. 30 seconds behind.
30 seconds. 30 seconds, 30 seconds. If we can use a rope or a steel cable to stop the Mercedes, then 30 seconds. Then 30 seconds would be all we need.
Even if a rope can't stop the car, we still need more than 30 seconds to escape from here. And we'd have to face the armed guard here in the open. It would not be my first choice.
And it was our only choice.
And that's a clip from Anthropoid starring Cillian Murphy, Jamie Dornan. Gentlemen, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, very good,
very
thanks.
well.
How
are you?
Okay, yeah, I'm doing very well.
Good.
So, Anthropoid must be the most unusual title for a World War II action drama. Just explain the story and the title, please.
Well, the title, I'm going to get this wrong probably, but it's Greek in origin, and I think it means like almost human or not quite human. And I think the reason that was picked was because obviously Heydrich was more like a monster than a human being. You know, for those of you who know about him, he was the third ranking in the Third Reich in the Nazi hierarchy, and he was kind of the architect of the final solution, and just a bad creature all around.
In fact, I think people, when you talk about that, people might remember seeing on television Ken Branagh played Heydrich in Conspiracy, which was a TV drama, which was the Wannsee Conference in which the whole final solution was kind of drawn up. So this is the plan to kill Reinhard Heydrich, and you play Josef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš. Have I got the roughly right?
You've definitely got Kubiš right. Gabčík, isn't it?
Gabčík, I think.
Gabčík. And Cillian, you're Slovak,
Yes, yeah.
and Jamie, you're Czech.
Yeah, Moravian, yeah.
Moravian. Okay, so explain, because we see you. The movie starts as you parachute, and who are you? How have you been picked?
So we play, as you said, Josef Gabčík and Jan Kubiš here, two Czech soldiers who have been trained in the United Kingdom actually for 4 years, weren't they there? And they've been parachuted back into Nazi-occupied Prague with this mission, Anthropoid, to assassinate Reinhard Heydrich. There's other soldiers who are parachuted in at the same time, but the main bulk of the mission fell on these two guys. Very normal soldiers, to be honest. They're not remarkable in any sense. You know, they're not like super soldiers or superhuman. And for me, that's why I find it all so relatable, that they were just sort of normal men thrust into a very abnormal situation.
Do we know why they were picked?
That's a very good question. I think, you know, when Czechoslovakia, as it was known then, became occupied, there was a lot of, you know, people that just before it became occupied left. A lot of the soldiers left, and then the Czech government was in Britain, so I think they got to Britain, and I think when we were reading about it and research, I think they were both, you know, the guys that made the mission, they had certain skills, you know, and certain temperaments. So I think they were chosen for that reason. But I think it was mostly that they were obviously, you know, Czech, and they could go in there and go undercover pretty quickly. And as Jamie said, they weren't by any standards, you know, superhuman. They were pretty average guys. I hadn't seen much action, I don't think, either of them. I don't think they'd never like shot anyone in action, you know. But yeah, that's the reason. They just happened to be in England, and so they were trained by the SOE.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why. So we see you arriving and setting up the mission, but it's a pretty chaotic mission, isn't it? I mean, this isn't an operation that runs. I don't want to give anything away, but obviously it's all written down. It's not a smooth operation.
It's certainly not a smooth operation, and there was many differing opinions on whether it was the right thing to do. Within the Czech resistance themselves, which there was already a resistance in Czechoslovakia at the time, but this was something else altogether. You know, this is there's one thing standing up to the Nazi regime and you know, trying to do all you can against that, but it's another to then come out and say you're going to assassinate the highest ranking Nazi officer that is within Prague at the time. Daring and sort of insane in its capacity. So obviously there's a lot of people who were against it. So their boys were having to fight against that right from the start.
And are they against it because of the fear of reprisals?
Yeah, exactly. That the whole of Prague would be torn apart if they succeeded. It's a strange thing of like people fearing the mission succeeding. Czech people fearing that if you succeed with the mission, you manage to kill Heydrich. Say you kill him, the reprisals are so huge. So Czech people not even wanting the mission to succeed is kind of a very odd situation, And look, the reprisals were huge and horrific and heinous, but you do ask yourself, you're forced to ask yourself the question of whether it was all worth it. But I think the plans that Heydrich had for Czechoslovakia as it was then were far greater than the reprisals.
The guys that you play and the civilians that supported them are considered heroes in the Czech Republic. But over here, Cillian, a lot of people will come to this story and think, well, I kind of know about Heydrich, but I don't really know this story. It seems amazing that there are so many World War II stories, and maybe this still isn't as well known as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, and I think Jamie as well, we both weren't aware of it at all. And obviously it's huge for the Czech people. But, I think that conflict was so huge in scale. There's still incidents in it and pieces of it that we're still finding out about or that haven't been properly investigated, certainly for the average, person who's not a historian, I think. And, but if you, looking back on it, you realize that this act, the ramifications of it change they changed the course of the Second World War, and then they changed the course of history as a result. And I was just thinking as you were talking there, like the reprisals, like they destroyed, razed to the ground this town Lidice, and there was something like 10,000 people massacred as a result of the assassination attempt, as it was at the time. And that was the first time that the world became aware, I think, of the real brutality of the Third Reich, because there was actually newsreel and news footage about this. So even then, it was changing, the course of the war.
And you film in Prague, and there are Czech producers, I understand, on the movie. You must have been made very aware of the importance of getting the historical facts correct on this story.
Yeah, very much so, and that was hugely important to Sean from the outset anyway.
He's the director.
Yeah, Sean Ellis, the director. He has been living with this story sort of 15, 16 years, so he had a very strong idea of what he wanted it to be, and also, you're not making a documentary, you're making a movie and it's a piece of entertainment, but when it's based on something that actually happened, I think for some films they play around with the truth a lot, but Sean really wanted it to be a pretty truthful depiction of what went on, and obviously the Czech producers involved were very happy for that too. This is a piece of history that obviously shaped their country forever, and they all know the story inside out, and it means so much to them. So there's definitely a sort of a unifying agreement that we should be sticking close to the actual facts, but also it is making a movie as well, obviously.
Yeah. And you get your story out first because HHHH is on the way. In fact, Jason Clarke, the Australian actor, when he was on the show for Everest a couple of years back, he was excited to talk about Everest, but what he really wanted to talk about was the fact that he was playing Heydrich in HHHH, so this story is going to be, if this is their way into the story, they're going to get another dose of it in about a year's time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, doesn't it? And it seems to happen in the industry quite a lot. Films come in twos or three sometimes. And this story has been made before. It's been made in the 70s, and there was a Czech version, obviously, as well. But how can I say? It's good to be out first.
Yeah. And you got, sorry, James.
Yeah, no, but I think that from what I know of HHHH, make sure I get those right.
H's. Yeah.
4 H's, yeah. Is that it's a slightly different take on it, and it focuses more on Heydrich and his private life and everything. So rather than centering on the operation, so I think it's a different take. Which
and your film's got Toby Jones in it, the great Toby Jones.
It does, the brilliant Toby Jones, yeah.
Putting in another fabulous performance.
Mm-hmm.
And how did a couple of Irish actors get on with the Czech accent, or the Czech accent and a Moravian accent? I mean, what were you told about getting that right?
Well, Sean had sort of voiced very early on to us that, you know, the accents needed to be quite soft, and they had to differentiate between, you know, Cillian's Slovakian and my Moravian, which I think is important. But also, you don't want them to be a distraction. You don't want people to be thinking about the accents, you know, post sort of 5-6 minutes into a movie. And also, they're not, the Czech accent is in its nature when you know, English spoken Czech is it's softer than, say, Russian, which is quite catchy and hooky and can be quite distracting when you hear like British or Irish people do it, I feel. So there's a softness he wanted to it that I think suited us. And we had the luxury of having a lot of Czech actors in scenes with us, and they were doing, you know, Czech accented English, and so that was helpful, definitely.
Is Slovak tougher than Brummie?
Remarkably similar. No, I don't know. I think every accent, you've got to give it time. You know, you just have to put the work in, and then just hope for the best. It's kind of fingers crossed. And I like when we did Peaky Blinders, I remember everyone was terrified, but the people of Birmingham accepted it. And I think similarly, when this film premiered in Czech Republic, they gave us the tentative thumbs up. There's a lot of T's there. So we're I think we got away with it, you know.
And there's more Peaky Blinders? Is there another
2 more, yeah.
Are you filming that?
No, not till next year.
Are you looking forward to that? Because you obviously love that character so much that, and I think you're a producer now on the series. It must be quite exciting to get back into that period, back into the Shelby hat.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never thought that, you know, certainly like this, what's happened in television, you'd never have expected to be given the gift to play an actor or to play a character for like, when we do 5 series, that'll have been like 30 hours of television. It's kind of extraordinary. And to be able to develop a character like that, particularly, you know, with such great writing and such great cast. So yeah, it kind of took me by surprise, and I think a lot of people by surprise. So I'm very happy that it's doing so well.
What do we see you in next, James? Is it the fall?
I think, we finished the 3rd series in February, and it comes out the end of September. So, yeah.
And then more 50 Shades. When do we see that?
That comes out. The second one comes out Valentine's Day-ish of 2017, and then the 3rd one comes out Valentine's Day-ish
You're smiling.
of 2018. Yeah. Valentine's Days are covered if you're that way inclined.
Yeah. Actually, we should mention just before we finish. Cillian, you're just on the subject of World War II. I mean, I know this is all completely random, but you're working with Christopher Nolan again on Dunkirk. Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Well, you know, Chris, he doesn't like to give too much away, but you know, people. There's another part of the Second World War that people are familiar with, and it's just going to be. I think it's very interesting to see Chris take on a war film. You know, because I think. For me, he's one of the great directors, and I think a lot of the great directors, you look at their filmography, and there's always a war film in there. And I think, you know, Chris's philosophy and the way he shoots things, it should be something kind of special. I hope so.
One of my favourite moments on doing this show was when Chris Nolan was last on the show for Interstellar.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to stop because Anne Hathaway was making so much noise in her interview in the room next door, and he insisted that we stop. And everyone was saying, "No, we're going to be out of sync. We have to carry on." And at that moment, there was no doubt who was in charge in the room, and that was Chris Nolan. And he absolutely insisted that we stop until Anne Hathaway finished. And we stopped recording, and we talked about conspiracy theories and moon landings and all that kind of stuff. It was just an amazing conversation. Then, and he said, "How long is Anne going to be?" And they checked. She said, "It's going to be about 5 minutes." So we sat and talked for 5 minutes. Then when she'd finished laughing, we carried on doing the interview. But what an amazing man.
He's quite unique, yeah. Quite unique. But the films talk for themselves, really.
Cillian and Jamie, we appreciate spending some time with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.